welcome to the Blue Thunder Pod AEW edition. I'm your host, Billy Sullivan. With me this week, my dad's favorite podcast host, and she's sure going to be shocked when she finds out who Taz's son is, Aaron Winkler.
Hey, everybody.
My sister, by the way. Just in case you didn't listen to the WWE pod yet, that is dropping at the same time as this one. Go check it out. But I figured I'd have to mention it on both. We just recently went over Raw. Just finished that recording. After Aaron had been on a wrestling hiatus for essentially 20 years. About 20 years. And now we're about to dive into the deep end. The real grapple fuck freakazoid fan base like me, AEW, and we're going to talk about Dynamite. So I'm just going to ask off the top for a general feeling. What did you think of Dynamite as a whole, and how did you feel it compared, good or bad, or either, to Raw?
I really enjoyed it. It was my very first AEW experience. I have a lot of WWF, WWE experience way back in my history, but this was my first time actually watching AEW, even though Billy has told me to watch it over and over and over again.
I tried showing everyone on Earth the Vikingo Kenny Omega match.
I really liked it. I was super impressed just generally with the mic work of like pretty much everybody I saw.
No scripted promos in AEW.
It was great. There were some guys on Raw where they just felt stunted and forced when they were talking, even if it was just for a little bit, or the characters just felt kind of ridiculous.
If you've heard me do that, I do it's a sound effect every time I'm talking about a WWE promo. Because that's how they write them basically in iambic pentameter. Sorry, continue.
Right, no, one of the things after I had finished watching that I noticed was that there wasn't really anybody that stood out as like a weak point on the mic to me, which I was like, maybe this is just a really good Dynamite, and then you told me this was a weird Dynamite, so
I would say this was a solid Dynamite. Okay. Last week was a great Dynamite, and they've had a series of great ones, but this is what they call the go-home show. It's the one right before the pay-per-view, so you can't really do a ton of like big story stuff, because you're about to do it at the pay-per-view.
But that was a big thing that I noticed. Kind of at the end, I realized that. I really enjoyed the announce crew that AEW has. I mean, I knew Taz back in the day, and I always liked him, and I always was pretty happy when he had moved into announcing.
He's super funny now.
He is very funny. I legit LOL'd when they showed the announce crew, and there was a guy in a lucha mask.
Excalibur.
I didn't know that was a thing, and it caught me off guard because he's such a great announcer, and not that he shouldn't have a mask on. I just wasn't expecting
100%. He sounds like a dude that should have been like a broadcast school guy or something. And no, he was like a luchador with El Generico and like Ring of Honor and Chikara and shit. and he just happens to be the best like play-by-play guy that's ever lived.
And then
he knows every fucking move, every Japanese name for everything. Like, Taz gets pissed if you say any kind of armbar wrong. It's like, it's not a cross arm breaker. It's a Juji Gatami. Get it straight. It's a Juji Gatami. But yeah, X knows like everything. They're like, it's a variant of the Tiger Driver 98.
I liked the idea of having like a few guys at the announce table throughout. I felt like that broke it up a little bit, which was kind of nice. You weren't hearing just the same voice all the time. I liked that some of the active talent would sit down at the table.
Yeah.
And because this is my first introduction to AEW, so seeing somebody that wasn't necessarily wrestling that night, but kind of getting a taste of their personality because they were spending some time at the table was a good way to be introduced to
like AEW. Daddy Magic with Danny Garcia, like that's his mentor kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice. I really enjoyed that. That stood out to me as something.
And actually, Collision has one of my favorite announcers, Nigel McGuinness, who British guy that is super, super funny. But that's on Saturday nights.
Okay.
You can check that out too.
I'm going
DVR is DVR.
I definitely, like I said in the WWE Raw episode, this has like reignited my interest in wrestling, and I'm going to stick with it at least for a little while and see if I still feel that way after I've watched a bit more.
So was the difference in ring, both style and quality, as evident to you as it is to like me or other people that watch.
It was, and I don't know if this is going to make sense, because it makes sense in my brain as somebody who hadn't watched it and as somebody who jumped back into Raw after 20 years and felt like Raw just picked up where it left off kind of 20 years ago. And it felt very much like I was still in 2001 or something when I was watching it. This felt more modern. Even like the clothing that they wore, like there was leather jackets on Raw and there was like leather jackets on Dynamite, but they felt different. It felt more modern. The talent was able to wear kind of stuff that they wanted to wear, it seems like, versus being a character.
Yep. One of their big mission statements was like, you are going to have creative freedom. Tony Khan ultimately decides who wins and loses and who wrestles who. But like, they have a lot of creative freedom as far as their gear, as far as their promos. And the promos thing, that's a two double-edged sword, because the reason everybody's pretty good in AEW on promos is because it's a sink or swim situation. You are thrown out there, no script. They say you need to touch on this, this, and this. Do it however you want. And the people that can't do it, it's
fade away.
Right away. And then sometimes they'll go away and come back. Like Danny Garcia was a terrible promo. Now he's a pretty good promo.
Yeah.
But like, it's definitely a sink or swim thing here, both in the ring and like on the mic. It's, for me, it's like the spiritual successor to like 1995 and prior WCW. And ECW, like the mix of that and New Japan. That's what AEW is.
Yeah, there was kind of an ECW vibe to me. We didn't actually talk about it. I did watch a little bit of ECW way back in the day, and so was familiar with some of that. And that kind of had the vibe. Maybe just because it's a smaller production.
It's much more violent.
Yeah,
AEW is just much more violent.
Right.
They bleed. They've started bleeding again on WWE broadcasts occasionally, but they bleed on almost every show on AEW, and they do death matches. Hangman Page drank Swerve Strickland's blood at a pay-per-view. That pay-per-view. But yeah, like I always wonder, because it boggles my mind all the time, like the gigantic numbers that WWE does. And when you watch the shows back to back, to me, it's just like, I am enjoying current WWE much more than I had for the last 20 years. I think that like one show is just very exciting and the other one is kind of boring for stretches. And the kind of boring one, maybe this nostalgia thing is like even more powerful than I imagined, because like, they get like 3 million viewers.
I think it is.
Dynamite gets like 600, 700,000.
I was expecting to not that I was expecting not to enjoy Raw, but I enjoyed it more than I thought. And I think it was literally like the nostalgia bomb of it.
It is.
Made me feel good watching it.
It is objectively better now than it was 2 years ago, with Triple H at the helm, at least for now, until they find out that he was in the room too. But it's improved to the point where it's not unwatchable. They still do a bunch of dumbass shit, like have a tag team that hasn't won a match in a year get a tag title match. Nothing makes sense. There's no rules, so that they don't have to follow any rules. They don't have a universe to actually, Kevin Owens, he's like the Deadpool. That's my guy. He's the Deadpool of WWE. He's the only person that will call all of the bullshit out. If you say somebody's name in the ring on the mic, then they come out. And Kevin Owens is like, don't you watch the show? Don't you know? If you say the name, they're going to come out. And then we're going to have a match at the pay-per-view. I really want him to join AEW before he hangs it up. He came up with the Young Bucks, the guys that they're the EVPs here, the two bad smarmy guys. Oh. Maybe the greatest tag team of all time. They were a trio with Kevin Owens. The guys that look like they would like hang out at like a hookah lounge to pick up 18-year-olds. 100%, and that's exactly the character they're going for.
All right, well, good. Yeah, their suits were a little too tight.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're literally EVPs.
I think I noted them as the douche twins.
That's perfect.
Yeah,
they were the Young Bucks. They are actually executive vice presidents because they, along with Kenny Omega, Cody Rhodes at the time, Hangman Page and Tony Khan were the people that started the company.
Oh, okay.
Like they all started together. They have only very recently started using the EVP thing on screen and doing the call us by our Christian names, Matthew and Nicholas Jackson. Their names are not Jackson, by the way. But like Nicholas does he's like the super mean boss, like the bad cop. And Matthew is like the kind of boss that I hated more than any other boss that I ever had in my life. The disingenuous want to be your buddy. Like, I'm going to have to fine you for this.
Yeah,
you know, but you know what? But you're killing it. You're a rock star. You're crushing it. Like, he's great at that.
Yeah. And I only got a little glimpse of them, but it was an interesting one.
They were not in, that was a drawback for this show because that's the Elite is that group. Okada, Kazuchika Okada is the other guy that's with them, the blonde Japanese guy who just calls everybody bitch. So he was the biggest star in Japan for 10 straight years. He was Hulk Hogan in Japan. He had the greatest consensus, generally believed to be the greatest wrestling match of all time with Kenny Omega when in New Japan. And he just signed for $1 zillion to come to America. And it was a big hit to New Japan because it was like losing Hulk Hogan or whatever. But he's been a joy.
And how long has he been in AEW?
A few months.
Oh, okay.
First match was a 5-star match. Same with Will Ospreay, who also came over from New Japan.
Oh, wow.
First 2 matches were 5-star matches. I'm at a crossroads as to who my favorite wrestler is right now because I got MJF and I got Will Ospreay and I got Mark Briscoe too. And I didn't think anybody would be able to unseat MJF, but bruv, Will bloody Ospreay is something else.
Can I tell you also probably my biggest takeaway of like what is AEW as somebody who'd never watched it? Does everybody have a goddamn belt in AEW?
There are way too many belts. It is a area of contention. Well, not contention because we agree actually every week. What happened was Tony Khan bought Ring of Honor after he already owned AEW because Ring of Honor was like going to go out of business and he's like nostalgic nerd.
Okay.
But he kept all those belts. And then he has people doing on both shows, and there's a zillion belts. They need to get rid of all the Ring of Honor belts.
There were so many that I almost thought it was like a shtick or something.
So the ones you need to give a shit about are the men's and women's world title.
Okay.
The TBS is the women's secondary. The TNT is the men's secondary, and then the international is like the Intercontinental Championship. There's another one. The one that Okada carries is the Continental, but that's actually more of a prize that you get for winning a tournament that they do at one point of the year than like a regular belt. So it's really all you need to pay attention to is the tag belts, the heavyweight titles, men's and women's, and then like the secondary men's and women's belt, the TBS and TNT, and the Continental matter. Like everything else is just like whatever.
Yeah, because I was watching and at one point I'm like, I think 90% of the people that have come out have had a belt.
And like John Moxley, that's New Japan's. He went to Japan and won their title. Yeah. And he's carrying that thing around.
Well, that was something else too that I'd heard. They'd mentioned something and it didn't really make sense to me because I have never watched this before. And so getting the New Japan and AEW stuff kind of sorted in my mind was a little bit of a difficulty.
It's probably good I picked the most confusing possible week.
Right.
Like, because AEW can be pretty daunting and confusing for a newcomer, especially a newcomer that hasn't experienced like wrestling storytelling like in Japan. Because that's where this kind of storytelling and stuff was happening before. And Japan has a zillion belts and like they do everything different. So it can be kind of daunting. So it's probably good that like I started out it'll be like taking the donut off the bat next week when you watch Dynamite. So show started off with MJF with a decidedly like less promo time than usual for a specific reason, because Daniel Garcia and his handsome ass face came dancing down to the ring. he's the guy that Dave said every time he talks, and now I can't not hear it. He sounds like he's going to say hello to your mother for me. like Mark Wahlberg in Saturday Night Live. But it's Daniel Garcia's like hometown. He is like a wrestling savant. Okay. He's 25, I think. He's like almost as good as like Bryan Danielson level. He's absolutely incredible. But they keep doing stop-start pushes with him. So like I'll believe it when I see it. But he's ready to be like a big star. So I was happy to see him in the ring with MJF, Will Ospreay, and like those are your two biggest probably baby faces, because Swerve is kind of a tweener.
Okay.
What'd you think of like MJF as a character, of Ospreay, Will Ospreay as a character, and Danny Garcia?
I liked the back and forth that kind of happened. I was a little not sure what was going on at first, because I was like, wait, are they?
I'm asking more for the vibes, because there's no way for you to without.
But I have to tell you that the first thought I had about MJF, when I didn't know who he was, I didn't even realize he was the guy that you loved so much. I was like, he has a flavor of like in his prime Chris Jericho vibes when he talks on the mic.
Jericho was his first mentor in AEW.
Okay, well that makes sense.
They did a song and dance number together in 2019.
That was my first, that was kind of like what I felt about him. My first impression of him was just like, this reminds me of early, awesome on the mic. So
current
fun
Chris
to listen
Jericho,
to
I am very tired of. But that's a great call. And that's amazing that was like his first mentor in a big company was Chris Jericho.
Yeah, that
is literally his first big feud.
That was the definite vibe that I got from him, and I appreciated that. And I figured I would probably like him if I stick around and watch some.
How about Will bloody Ospreay, bruv?
I didn't know what I thought about him at first, but I think I'm going to like him. He seemed like he was like a pretty big hit with the crowd. So
he's the best. He's the most exciting and best wrestler that's ever lived.
So I figured there's something to it, because if the crowd is reacting to you, then
once we're done recording, I'm going to show you a match. That will give you an idea.
Yeah, I definitely want to see more of these guys, especially the people I've never been.
2 pay-per-views ago, he and Bryan Danielson had a match that a lot of critics considered the best North American match of all time. But he also is like very earnest, and he talks he really talks like that.
Yeah, well, like I said in the Raw episode, I'm kind of impressed across both companies that they're expanding out. And it's not the same oiled up white dudes from America that are
There's very little body grease in AEW.
Yeah, and they're branching out into European.
Because you know what? Tough guys don't fucking put grease on their bodies.
Right.
Will Ospreay, a great promo too. And he is autistic. Openly. Really? Talks about it openly. Which is amazing that he is such a flawless promo to me. Like, I think I could see that helping him do the things in the ring that he does, because he does a bunch of stuff that literally nobody else can do or could even try. And the focus that can sometimes come with like being on the spectrum, I think could help with that. But I would think it would hurt his ability to cut these like super long, flawless promos, and he just is great at it.
Yeah, I mean the drawback of this introduction to AEW for me was that, like I said, everybody seemed really good on the mic work. So it was hard to be like, oh, well, I like this person. This was a great first impression from this person versus this person, because they all were good.
That's actually so like Triple H would probably tell you that, and that's kind of a WWE philosophy. They intentionally hold people back from doing their best work.
Yeah.
Because they want other people, like they want it to be levels.
They want to be able to manage.
And for me, I just want to see the fucking awesomest shit.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care about what your hierarchy is.
Right.
I want everything to be awesome. MJF got cut off so it's looking like it's going to be MJF versus Will Ospreay at Wembley, which is like they had 80,000 people there last time. It won't be that this time, but it'll be over 50 or 60.
Yeah. I think I'm going to have to watch that.
It's going to be their biggest show. Oh, absolutely. Ozzy Deck will be open. Do you agree with me that Daniel Garcia is a strikingly handsome young man?
He is. I think he is. And I really appreciated
nice jawline.
The New York back and forth that they were doing. It was cute and it was fun. And it was a nice way to like kind of be introduced to them. I
think they went to the same wrestling training school too.
Yeah.
Along with This was later, but Taz's son.
The suspense is killing me.
And they were in Buffalo, so it's like Danny Garcia's place.
Right.
MJF just rules. He's the best talker, I think, ever.
Well, like I said, yeah, like prime Jericho vibe. So, and that's very high praise.
Yeah. I mean, Jericho's one of the best players of all time. Right. They cut then to the World Heavyweight Champ. First black World Heavyweight Champ in AEW history. Bad motherfucker, Swerve Strickland. He's a good guy, but he's like a nasty. He's like a tweenery Steve Austin guy, where he still does like nasty shit. Like
I kind of got that vibe.
Kicked Will Ospreay's head off at the end of this.
Well, you knew that was coming.
Yeah.
So, even if you've never watched before, you knew that was coming.
But he's incredible. What'd you think of his little promo with Prince Nana?
It was interesting.
That's a great word for it, because Swerve, more than anything else, is like unique and interesting. The way he moves in the ring, the way he talks, everything he does is different than anybody else. He reminds me of Macho Man Randy Savage, kind of. Not like literally in a literal sense, but in a, like, he dresses in a way that nobody else does.
Right.
It's very specifically him. He talks in a way that's very specifically him, and he wrestles the way that is very specifically him. Those kicks that he does, usually like super kicks look like the Shawn Michaels, big super kick. He does kicks that look totally different, and they look more brutal.
Which is a nice thing, because compared to some of the stuff going on that I noticed in Raw, was like, it seemed very much like a copy paste of guys that we saw 20 years ago when I used to watch. And so
it really is the performance
to see
center.
New stuff and new people and new gimmicks and new looks and all of that is kind of nice.
It's just more exciting. And the good hard hitting action is just more fun to watch for me. With actual finishes. It did piss me off that the show I picked for you to start your Dynamite career on is the single DQ that they allow themselves. Because that was one of the tenets that they set forth when they started the company, is no bullshit, cheatery, smazzy finishes, no dusty finishes. We're going to have winners and losers, and wins and losses count. They have rankings. They've kind of fucked those up. They are not doing as nearly enough with them as they should, but they do keep records, and they show the wrestlers' records at the bottom of the screen whenever they come out. So the wins and losses matter, because you can't get a title shot if you're 500 or something. Right.
And that is that. I mean, always WWE's had that gimmicky thing where some nobody wins the big thing.
All you have to do is come be angry and go backstage and be like, I want a title shot. Your mother's a whore. And then they go, okay.
Yeah. And honestly,
at Money in the Bank,
structure, as somebody that's never watched, would be very helpful, because then immediately I kind of have an idea of.
Yeah, there's rules. There are, as I was saying, there's no rules or universe in WWE. There are very strict rules in AEW. It's the they adhere to them like a sports promotion would.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I think that will be something helpful as I continue to watch and get to know who is who.
What do we have? Oh, I did think that the Swerve saying you have a focus problem might have been not intentionally, but I'm he's autistic. Lay off of that bullshit. Plus, I love Will Ospreay. Next was Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli of the Blackpool Combat Club, and Bryan Danielson in commentary. He's also a member of that club. Jon Moxley, you probably don't know him because you were not watching WWE at the time, but he was Dean Ambrose of The Shield. Okay. So he was Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. There was those three. Okay. And Mox, Ambrose at the time, was the first big guy to leave. On the first AEW pay-per-view, he was the big surprise. Got it. Because he was they were giving him shitty Vince McMahon goofy writing, and he wanted to just be a badass who bled all the time and fought violent matches. I'm a little bored of his shtick now after 5 years. I think he needs to change it, but he's been a stalwart for the company for a long time. And Claudio's another guy just like Mox that left for the same types of reasons. They went up against Shingo Takagi, which probably shouldn't even get in the weeds with you. He's like one of the best wrestlers of his generation, like a tiny bit past his prime. He's in NJPW now, but most of his career was in another Japanese promotion called EDT. Like, it doesn't matter. They're doing these mixy matches because they got Forbidden Door coming up. I'm just very tired of the Blackpool Combat Club. I want them split up.
Well, so interestingly, because this was like the first match that I got to see.
Yeah.
I was kind of worried because in my notes, I was like, this match is starting out weird. It was like they weren't selling anything. It was strange.
Well, a lot of WWE people will argue that, I hate AEW because they don't sell. That's not true. They sell like they always have in Japan. It's called fighting spirit, where you get hit with something and you keep coming back, and then later on, it all adds up, and you just like fall down.
Because I felt like suddenly it improved and it like changed and shifted, and it was like watching two different matches. And again,
because in real fights, usually it's not a one punch like knockout. Right. It's a series of things that cause you to eventually erode to the point where you collapse.
Yeah, because at first I was like, this is really slow moving and it's weird, but then it shifted.
The Blackpool Combat Club generally, and like I said, I'm more than a little tired of the faction. I like all the guys individually, but they need to break up. But their matches almost always follow that layout where it starts a little slow and then it ramps up to like crazy violence by the end. Well, plus these were guys that they're not in the same promotion. So I'm
glad that I wasn't making that up in my own head then.
No, you've had a lot of pretty impressive insights about like both companies.
I'm telling you, I paid attention and did my homework while I was watching it. I was studying. So
this was the DQ finish, which I was like, what the fuck? Aaron's first ever AEW match is a disqualification finish. I've seen literally 3 of them in my life.
But you know what? It didn't throw me because it happens so often. And I don't know what the differences are yet because this is brand new to me. So I'm sure it'll become more and more apparent the more I watch. But that was just like something that happens in wrestling. So it didn't really throw me off that it was anything weird.
Next up, we had the Bang Bang Gang coming out. Jay White coming out with his sexy abs. He might have the most perfect male body I've ever seen in my life. He's a total scumbag. Looks like a scumbag. He looks like a dude that would fuck your wife. Like that.
He does. He does.
Against Rey Fenix, one of the best luchadors. He's actually is an AEW guy. And this was a tournament match. So they're doing a thing. They do the Owen Hart Memorial Tournament.
Yeah, I heard them mention
this year. In the past, it didn't really have any stakes beyond you get a trophy. So it's kind of dumb. This year, the winner of the tournament gets the main event Wembley for the world title. So, like, it's a big goddamn deal. So the Bang Bang Gang are Jay White, who is, again, a world champion in New Japan that they stole. He's, like, the best counter or like, sneaky wrestler and counter wrestler that there is probably going. Like, he'll act like he's totally out of it for a long time, and then he'll slither up behind you and hit you with a little, like, bunch of stuff, and then act like he's super tired and like his gas tank is gone, but then he'll counter your move immediately. He's just a really good bad guy for this kind of thing, and it's like I thought this was a good match.
Yeah, it was enjoyable to watch. I could tell that they were both super skilled.
Yeah. Phoenix sometimes can be a little what they call spot festy, where it's just spots, big spots. Jay White is more telling a story in the ring, which is just as important as the spots, and Phoenix doesn't always do that. But like just Jay White in the ring is enough for me. So my next note was explain Christian Cage to Aaron.
Can I just say, he is aging like a fine
He's
wine.
A sexy motherfucker, right?
Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe how
you know,
good
Vince
he
McMahon
looked.
one time, like no joke, wanted to have a blue dot put over Christian's face when he was on TV because he thought he was so ugly.
Oh no, that's like insecurity on Vince's part.
He is like he is zaddy as a motherfucker.
I mean, I couldn't believe how since the last time I saw him many years ago, how great he looked. It's literally in my notes that he looks great.
So what his thing is, it's the Patriarchy is the name of his group.
Yeah, I kind of got the family vibe.
Started because for several feuds in a row, Everybody he feuded with had a dead father. Jungle Boy Jack Perry was the first one, Luke Perry's son.
Oh, boy.
So, bunch of stuff about Luke Perry being dead and I can be your father. Nick Wayne, the 19-year-old kid that is in his group, his dad was Buddy Wayne, passed away a few years ago. And Christian said, I will be your father. Christian, every feud, he finds a way to finagle dead father.
Oh, wow. That's kind of a great angle.
It's incredible. He's incredible. And then, like, when people boo, when he's talking, he always says, shut up while I'm conducting my business. He's just the best. He's the best Christian that he's ever been.
Yeah, and I liked him when he was Christian.
The lady,
WWE.
it's Nick Wayne's mom. They call her Mother Wayne. Christian doesn't. It wasn't just like his gear for the like interview here. He wrestles in a sleeveless turtleneck.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to keep watching.
He is one of the best things going. He's our father. I want to get Nick Wayne has a shirt that just says Christian is my father. I want that very badly. So this was next up was your only meeting here really with like the most important bad guys in AEW right now, Matthew and Nicholas Jackson. The Young Bucks, they were the first, back in the day, they were the first wrestlers to show that you could make a really good living not in WWE. Like, they were real smart about their merch. They were smart about like booking independents, and they were the best tag team ever too. Okay. But they were making six figures, not in WWE. So that like a lot of WWE fanboys really fucking hate them. They're the most loved and hated guys in wrestling. Both. Absolutely. WWE fans can't stand them. Mostly because they brought competition to their beloved.
Yeah.
And it's all tribalism nonsense. But the Young Bucks are undeniable, like, talents. I already talked to you about Matthews, the disingenuous, you're a rock star. Keep killing it.
Yeah.
Renee, one thing, if you could just smile a little bit more, that'd be great.
They have very tight suits on.
Yeah. They have different.
Was great.
They have different facial hair every show.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny too. Yeah, their look told you who they were.
It's
immediately.
Perfect. They come out to the Succession theme.
Yeah.
What'd you think of the Acclaimed?
Oh, that was they came out, and in my head I thought, is that Billy Gunn? And then they said "Scissor Me," and I was like, "That's definitely Billy Gunn."
The only thing I hate about Acclaimed is Billy Gunn, because he like politics his way into like he's 60-something years old.
You know what? The interesting part, probably of the whole broadcast, he was the worst mic of the whole broadcast.
Absolutely, he sucks. He sucks ass so bad. And like a few weeks ago, they had him murder Jay White, and I almost like quit watching wrestling. It pissed me off so bad. He like puts himself over. So yeah, his sons were Austin and Colton Gunn in the Bang Bang Gang. Okay. Oh, and Juice Robinson's the other one, the Stray Bullet. He's like my favorite one of them all. He's got the crazy curly hair. He's married to Toni Storm from a little bit later in the show.
Oh yeah.
His whole thing is just being like a maniac, but he does it better than anybody I've ever seen. The Acclaimed, obviously the hip hop angle, and they were a tag team first. Luckily, they're going back to wrestling tag teams. They were doing trios with Billy Gunn. Fuck Billy Gunn. I thought my most difficult thing to explain to you was going to have to be Scissor Me Daddy Ass. But because you remember Billy Gunn, you probably could figure out. The chant started because the Acclaimed always did the Scissor Me thing.
Okay.
And the chant started in Chicago, a show Dave was actually at, where the crowd just spontaneously started chanting,
I might be
biased. Scissor Me Daddy.
Chicago crowds are pretty darn good at these things.
No, it's not biased. It is like universally believed that Chicago, Philly, Texas, that's the American crowds.
Yeah.
The foreign whites, they kind of have it on all of us, like because they sing songs all together and stuff.
I'm sure
it's amazing. But Chicago is generally the best American crowd.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. So it started here.
So yeah, just the chant. So then they made it a thing, and they got super over. Anthony Bowens, I think I sent you the clip of this. He's the openly gay wrestler. I love the fans of AEW because in WWE they still would be kind of homophobic, I'm sure. But the fact that they were like gleefully chanting "He's gay, he's gay."
Yeah, that was one of the things you had showed me a while back when you were like, "You really need to start watching this."
He's an inspirational figure. I mean, he like does stuff with his husband on TV and stuff. Like he's open.
Yeah,
talks about it all the time.
Like especially Vince era WWE, that would have become. They might have done something with it just to make him humiliated in the bunch.
100%. They would have absolutely.
That would have worked.
They would have absolutely humiliated him. There's no doubt. He had a tryout for WWE. They didn't take him.
This is the company that had a senior citizen woman give birth to a hand.
Yes.
So I'm sure they wouldn't have been gentle with that storyline.
The hand being the son of future Hall of Famer Mark Henry. Max Caster also has had a long-running thing on Twitter with MJF where he's just hitting on him. And Max Caster, I'm almost positive, is straight. He might be bi, but like it's just nonstop. Like I want to give you shoulder rubs and stuff. Like, and MJF's like, "Fuck off, fuck the fuck off." So I really love those two together. I thought we were going to get a tag title match coming up at the pay-per-view, but I guess it's a 6-man, and they're probably going to do the tag title match at All In.
Okay.
So I have to put up with fucking daddy ass and his steroided up 60-year-old. You know, Billy Gunn right now is 14 years older than Hulk Hogan was when I saw him at WrestleMania in Toronto.
Wow.
Yeah. He needs to leave.
Yeah. Well, like I said, he was the worst mic. You would think a guy with that much experience would have some improvement on his mic skills, and he was the one low point. I forgot about that.
Both his sons are better talkers.
When I said everyone was good on the mic, I forgot. I have to both of his sons, back that statement.
His current group are both way better talkers than him. They're way better wrestlers too. Both his sons are better wrestlers than him too.
I have to ask you, not to derail your conversation, how do you feel, as someone who watches all the time, about the split screen thing that they do? Because I don't know how I feel about that.
So I have a way around it. If you get a VPN and watch it on Fight TV, which is where you would watch it if you were in the UK, it does not split the screen.
Oh,
they just continue.
Because I was like, I think I like it because they're not like, it's not a weird pause.
If I'm watching it on regular TV, I fast forward past the split screen stuff because they don't do anything really of consequence.
Yeah.
It's fun watching on the Fight TV because the commentary guys then can go hog wild and like do a bunch of funny jokes. But nah, like it doesn't retain me. I'm not that interested.
Because I was like, this is new and different, but I wasn't sure what I thought about it.
I think I explained Okada to you. He was like the biggest deal ever. And now so far he's come into AEW, has been basically like a super over comedy character after being like the Hulk Hogan for a decade. And his one match that he had was a 5-star match at a pay-per-view. Next up was the Conglomeration, which is a new group. Mark Briscoe is the other guy among the three that I put all the belts on him. He's the guy. The Briscoe brothers were a legendary tag team in Ring of Honor, independent. They were like absolutely amazing. Jay Briscoe was the older brother, kind of better looking. Mark Briscoe, you wouldn't know it because of the way he cuts his promos, but it's very intentional, is the brains. He's like a Rhodes Scholar, by the way.
I mean, that makes sense, though, because they like always say that you do your opposite stuff the best.
So the Briscoe brothers, despite being one of the greatest tag teams of all time, could never get into WWE or AEW because the networks wouldn't allow them. Because in 2007, a very young Jay Briscoe said something like, "I'd whoop my son if he turned out to be gay." Now, decades of like actual legitimate, like on the word of Sonny Kiss, a very openly gay wrestler, on the word of Anthony Bowens, like changed. They're from Sandy Fork, Delaware. So like, yeah.
Okay.
Changed his ways completely. So they should have let him back on TV. He like did an earnest and real and very public apology. And it was like a long time ago. And it wasn't even that terrible a thing, but they couldn't get on. Then, unfortunately, 2 years ago, Jay Briscoe was driving his daughters to cheerleading practice, and a woman driving the other direction fell asleep at the wheel. Head-on collision. Jay died immediately. Looked like his daughters were paralyzed permanently, but in a moment that made me cry like a fucking baby, and it's hard not to cry just thinking about it. Mark Briscoe, like 6 months ago, came out on stage, and because now Mark Briscoe was able to go on AEW because the problem child's not there anymore, so now he gets to be on the main, TV show or whatever. Briscoe comes out to cut a promo, and he says about a year ago, my nieces and my brother was in a terrible accident, and we was told that my nieces was never going to be able to move they hands, let alone walk again. However, and the place just went fucking ballistic, and these like 12 and 11-year-old girl like walk out on stage. Mark Briscoe is Mick Foley. He's the most likable, like earnest.
Then he'll be my favorite
dude. He actually uses a Mick Foley move too, a bump that I wish he would stop because he's gonna kill himself like Mick.
Yeah,
that's my favorite thing about wrestling, like old wrestling guys. Mick is like super fucked up. His body's super fucked up, but amazingly, he has 100% of his brain.
Right.
And he's very happy. He's constantly tweeting about Rhea Ripley and wrestling and stuff. He's awesome. I would be so devastated if Mick, like, if the CTE thing happened to him. He can't walk or whatever.
But he's special place in my heart.
He's just happy. He's a happy man. And he's like done it all. He was like, I've gone back now and watched Cactus Jack stuff.
Yep.
Because of the Turnbuckle Time Machine, and then were brutal matches.
Right?
Like, and then like one of the greatest promos of all time, and he's legit nice guy. And that's exactly what Mark Briscoe is too. Okay. They made him the Ring of Honor champion. Fuck that. Get rid of that belt. I want him
one of the belts.
I'm realizing though, like many of my favorite wrestlers were not on this card. Like, Darby Allin is still kind of hurt. Do you know who Darby Allin is?
I don't.
So he is a very unconventional, like skateboarder, very skinny, skateboardy kind of dude. Paints his face half black. He tag teamed with Sting until Sting just did his awesome retirement match, tagging with Darby. Darby is like the biggest daredevil in the world. He was supposed to climb Mount Everest. He was going to leave for 6 months to go climb Everest.
Wow.
But he broke his foot. So he put that on hold. And then with the broken foot, he was skateboarding, pushed the guy that designed the black flag logo for the band out of the way and got hit by a bus. And then posted a picture of himself with Tim. Is it Tim Robinson from I Think You Should Leave?
Yeah.
Like at a party and his broken nose and shit. Then he returned for a one-off match, a super hardcore match called Anarchy in the Arena last month, with a badly broken nose, a still broken ankle. He used a flamethrower to light Luke Perry's son on fire. And then
a sentence I never thought I would hear.
He was hung upside down in the middle of the ring by his broken ankle, and the Young Bucks with tacks on the bottoms of they have their own Reebok pumps line of sneakers now. Real tacks kicked him in his broken nose, and it wasn't like a fake thing, because immediately after, Darby Allin like Instagrammed a selfie of 1 million holes and bruises in his already broken, destroyed nose. And then the thing I really love about him is, beyond all that, he is one of the most like sound technical, like in-ring technicians that exists.
Really?
And like that doesn't happen, where like the Daredevil guy is also like an incredible technician, like to the level almost of the second to last match from this show that I'm sure you know that I like had a boner for the whole time. Still to this day, one of my favorite MJF matches was Darby Allin. So that's a guy I'm excited for you to meet.
Yeah, he sounds like someone I would appreciate. Sure.
My biggest issue with AEW still is they have such a stacked fucking women's roster of incredible wrestlers. They need to put more than a match and a segment on Dynamite. They put a bunch on Collision, but nobody watches Collision. Put a bunch on Rampage, nobody watches. They only ever give like usually one of the very top, like Tony Storm, the champ, or Mercedes, a match, and then they get like or Willow, and then they get like a segment. They need to start evening it out because the women's roster is as talented as the men's at this point.
Yeah.
Some of them hit harder too. Like it's unbelievable.
I mean, again, like the women's stuff is so different from what I remember, so it's really fun to watch. And I didn't get to see too much now that you mention it during this episode.
Because there wasn't very much.
Yeah.
There was the Mina Shirakawa thing. That's a big angle they're going into the pay-per-view with, and that's a good story. And I like Toni Storm.
I did.
It's cool that she has a character.
I loved her character. I really loved that whole
You know
thing.
what you'll love more? She's married to Juice Robinson, by the way. The guy with the crazy hair. When she's on commentary or doing promos, she's fucking super filthy.
Really?
She talks about punching her opponents in the box, pulling them around the ring by their labia. She just called herself the everyone wants a shot at this wide load that holds the gold. She's a fucking unbelievable promo.
Yeah, I liked the little bit of her character and everything that I saw.
She said she was going for a Nuru massage after, which are not even legal in America. But back to the conglomeration. So this is the third week in a row we've had this. They're just kind of put together like haphazardly. Now it seems like they're kind of forming a thing. Kyle O'Reilly, the guy that then tried to cut the Briscoe promo.
Yeah.
He's not like that at all. Like he's a very soft-spoken kind of dude. He's like a MMA guy. He's very, very likable. Awesome wrestler. But like that was super out of character, so it popped the shit out of me.
Okay.
Him doing a Mark Briscoe. Go listen to the AEW Blue Thunder pod 2 pods ago. I do the word for word first conglomeration Mark Briscoe promo, which was I think my favorite promo of the year.
Okay.
It broke everybody. You know what corpsing is in wrestling?
No.
It's usually you laugh, break character.
Oh, okay.
He got
Bill Haderring?
The most difficult people to... Renee Paquette is John Moxley's wife, is the best interviewer. Like, she's super pro. Got her to break.
Okay.
Kyle O'Reilly just stopped acting altogether and was like, Yeah. And then last week he was like, I will follow this man anywhere. And like him doing this Briscoe kind of promo just really was endearing to me. Plus, Kyle O'Reilly looks like a dude that you would see at the Southside Irish Parade.
He does.
But it sounds like you like Mark Briscoe. Did you get the Orange Cassidy vibe? Do you know what his deal is?
I don't know what his deal is, but I liked him. I know that.
He's very, very popular, and he's one of the best wrestlers.
I liked his whole shtick at the announce table.
From the start of his career in AEW, carried over from the Indies, his whole character was, I can't be bothered. I don't care.
That's what it was, and I really appreciate it.
And then the character has like evolved to like he does a thing where he puts his hands in his pockets every match, but then he flies around with his hands in his pockets the whole time. He does these baby kicks where he kicks him in the shin. But then last year or a year and a half ago, he won the international title and went on this run where he was defending it on TV every single week and getting like the shit kicked out of him. Had maybe the best title run of any AEW title run ever, and that evolved his character kind of. He was always with these guys, the Best Friends. That was their group. They just all broke up and abandoned him. So now he's like looking for new friends. Basically, Willow is his only friend he knows for sure. But it seems like the conglomeration might be his next thing.
No, I appreciated him. I liked like the way he was.
He does a thumbs up like this.
Yeah, like the unenthusiastic.
He was the only one that didn't break for Briscoe.
Okay.
He's unbelievable. How old do you think he is?
I have no idea. I just think he looked like he reminded me of Ryan Gosling. That's
42.
Really?
Yeah. I thought he was in his 20s or something until, like, the way he flies around the ring, too. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I probably need to watch him some more.
So next was the Timeless Tony, Mina Shirakawa thing. So Mina Shirakawa, Timeless Tony Storm brought in Mariah May, who's an awesome wrestler, Australian wrestler who was in Stardom in Japan. That's the top Joshi women's wrestling thing promotion in Japan. Tony actually came over from there originally too. That's where all the best wrestling. That's what like Osprey talks about, the best wrestling on earth is that Joshi stuff. So Mariah May has been Tony Storm's like understudy.
Right.
She's
they
like
kept
a
saying
delusional.
like she's her mentor and all of that.
She tag teamed with and had a vaguely bisexual, maybe tryst kind of thing with Mina Shirakawa.
Yeah, that was pretty.
Who currently is still in Stardom, but like now there's a tug of war between and Mariah May and actually all three of these women are fucking like tippy top best wrestlers in the world. Tony Storm does a hip attack where she sits you in the corner and then she runs full speed and hits you kind of where their ass.
Yep.
And it knocks everyone's head back. It's like it's the dark arts of wrestling that like I don't really want to know, but it shouldn't be able to be done without concussing someone every single time.
She's got some good hips on her.
Yeah, she talks about it all the time too. I wish I could remember all of her. She's like so many great lines. Whenever she's on commentary, like I'm cracking up. She's been champ for a while now, though. So I think what's going to happen is the Mina Shirakawa thing is going to break up, and it'll end up being Mariah May that beats her for the belt. The Outcasts came out, which is Saraya. She was a WWE. Paige was her name. She was actually a precursor to the Four Horsewomen. It was her and AJ Lee were kind of the first two.
Okay.
She got a bad neck injury. WWE wouldn't clear her to wrestle. She got a bunch of other doctors to clear her, so then she went and signed with AEW. She's been slowly getting back to where, because she was super awesome at one point. She's always been awesome on the mic, but now she's getting back to in ring where she's like very, very good. Her new member, Harley Cameron, which incidentally was the person that was trying to hit on Anthony Bowens whenever he chanted, "He's gay, he's gay," who everyone, including myself, thought was just like an eye candy person. They brought in to be like a TMZ character.
Right.
Because she always had like her boobs on display and playing a ditzy thing. Well, meanwhile, she's a fucking phenom because she has wrestled 13 total matches in her career, and she looks like she's been doing it for 20 goddamn years.
Wow.
She's absolutely amazing. I like that addition too, because I like all those women. I wish they didn't have to stick them all together and spread it out, do some more stuff. Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks, like my favorite.
I know.
Of all time.
I was hoping I was actually going to see her wrestle.
Yeah, well, she did. The thing, everybody bitched for a long time because she, after her debut, she didn't wrestle for like 2 months or something. But then she had a banger on the pay-per-view and then 2 TV matches. And they try to rotate an AEW, like give people time off TV because they understand that it's the little bumps that cause CTE.
Right.
Meanwhile, WWE still travels 5 days a week. So like, yeah, you're at much greater risk of like compound fracturing your tibia in AEW, but you're at a much greater risk of not knowing your kids' names if you wrestle for WWE. Stephanie Vaquer, that's another Forbidden Door opponent. She's awesome. I've seen her wrestle before, and she's just like a badass. That's going to be a great match because Mercedes Moné is she's real good with like what they call a strong base because she's thin. She's very little.
Yeah.
And she bumps like a fucking dragonfly hitting your windshield. And she just splats herself. It looks incredible every time. So whenever she wrestles somebody big, it's like, oh my God, you killed her. So that's my favorite kind of match. Did you ever see her wrestle?
No, because I really wasn't watching at all when she was at her height.
I get weepy. That's the only match I've ever showed Victoria. Was that one?
Yeah.
And
I mean, but like, even though I was removed from wrestling, I knew who she was because that's how much everybody talked about her.
So next, she was one of the four horsemen and the first one to leave. The learning tree with Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
So what this was is everybody was like chanting at him to retire for real. So he's trying to like lean into it and make it a character. Okay. But unfortunately, the fucking Bucks are doing that already and better. The two guys he has with him, the Bad Apple and Big Bill is the other guy he just calls Redwood. They're wonderful. But Jericho needs to go away for a while because it's the worst part of Dynamite every week when he is on. He has been pretty good at like reimagining his character in the past and changing things, but like there was just like some allegations by a female wrestler from WWE that he may have been a little inappropriate, and that coincided with people being very tired of his like actual shtick. So he really should have taken like a 3 or 4 month break. I mean, nothing was substantiated or like officially charged or whatever. It was like vague Twitter stuff, but it was not a good look. And then also people were tired of him. And I don't think that this is working.
Yeah, I mean, I loved Chris Jericho back in the day.
I loved Chris Jericho in 2021.
And well, I wasn't around. But it was like kind of a sad vibe when he came out. That was just what I felt, and it was like, oh,
I feel sad too.
He's like the dog that you need to just let it lay down.
So, what were your thoughts on the three people that they're going to be matching up with? Samoa Joe.
Oh, I really liked Samoa Joe.
Samoa Joe is one of the greatest wrestlers that's ever lived.
Okay, because I really, really liked him. I don't know anything about him.
He was a Ring of Honor independent guy for forever. One of CM Punk's biggest rivals. Went to TNA and like stayed there for forever too. Only had a short time in WWE. He was the most recent heavyweight champ before Swerve.
Oh, okay.
He fucking rules. He's one of the best talkers ever lived. He's a badass. His matches are great. He has incredible vibes. He just seems scary. He's funny. I love him.
Yeah, when I saw him, and maybe this reflects poorly on me, my expectation was like not to be super thrilled. And then I really enjoyed him. The little bit I got of him, I was like...
So Shibata, the Japanese guy, is a dude that was New Japan's top guy like 10 years ago. Then he suffered a brain injury so bad that they thought he was going to be a vegetable. He had like emergency brain surgery to relieve pressure, thought he was never going to wrestle again, somehow made a return, and AEW signed him like 2 years ago. So he's an absolute killer in the ring, but he's got that funny gimmick where I don't know if he did it on this show, but he has a speak and spell thing where
no, I don't think so.
It's like a lady's voice going,
oh,
there's no crying in wrestling.
Maybe there was a thing.
He kept doing stuff like with Renee. Like, there
was a thing.
I like the flowers on your blouse. They're fun.
They did, yeah, he did at one
he's a
point
killer.
Say something to Jericho with it.
And then the third member, the cold-hearted handsome devil, Hook, is Hook because he's from the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, where Taz is from.
Well, there you go.
Taz's son, that little handsome guy.
Oh, are we sure it's Taz's son? Did we do an ancestry DNA test?
We're sure because he can suplex a motherfucker that outweighs him by like 4 times. But yeah, like a anime attractive lacrosse guy. Joe and Hook had a great give and take the previous week. As they were walking down the hall about to attack some jobbers, Joe was like, all right, now explain to me, because Hook played lacrosse in college. He's like, what is lacrosse? Is this some bullshit that like you kids just invented now, some newfangled game or what? Because Joe's my age, and Hook is like 22. And Hook's like, nah, man, it's like the oldest sport in North American history. And Joe's like, so you're telling me a sport that's a combination of soccer and hockey is older than both? That don't make no sense. I love that trio together, and I think it's going to do wonders for Hook. because he has still has some stuff to work on. He's great at some stuff, but his striking is not so awesome. He's got a great look, obviously, and he's like got the vibes.
Yeah.
And he can talk because Taz is his dad. The next match was Zack Sabre Jr., who I fucking love. He's an NJPW guy. He talks like he was pulled directly out of Guy Ritchie early Lock, Stock, or Snatch. He's wrestling Orange Cassidy at the pay-per-view, and he keeps calling him Orange Bollocks. Hello, Orange Bollocks. He is I think the best technical wrestler that's ever lived. Zack Sabre Jr., and also a handsome man. He's the one with the blonde hair.
He was, yeah.
Wrestling Kyle O'Reilly, the other guy that I love. So this match was like everything I asked for in a professional wrestling match. It was like everything looked real, made sense. Every counter was like into another counter, and then like they had each other scouted, so they would go for a strike, but they would turn into like a Juji Gatami or an armbar or a leg bar, and it's so difficult to do that because you do have to lay your match out like to some degree. You can't just call the whole thing in the match. Some wrestlers do call the match like just on the fly.
Yeah. Usually
not really good ones, but like I don't know how like Zack Sabre can lay out an 18-part sequence, like where it's 18 different pinning combinations, and like how his opponent can remember it either. Like it's magical to me. And I love Zack Sabre, and that match is going to be insane. What did you think of this is the for the freaks, the most for the freaks match like of the week, more than any match in the last couple weeks, I would say. Like I could see where people that aren't like really into the graps, into wrestling, would be like, oh no, I'd rather have a bombastic personality or something.
No.
This like gives me a boner.
I really enjoyed it. And it's one of the things that makes me want to keep watching is that these guys are just enjoyable to watch even without knowing yet who they are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they like WWE slaps you in the face with who everyone is.
Yeah, because they think you're stupid.
Right.
That's the primary reason I don't like WWE.
So this
it all goes back to we think you're dumb, so we have to have Rhea Ripley cut a promo, go to commercial break, and then after the commercial break, show a replay of the promo she just cut.
And so this was like, I don't know these people yet, but I'm super interested in finding out who they are and what they're like.
And just, hello, Orange Bollocks.
Yeah.
Tells you a whole hell of a lot about that dude. And the way he comes out with his popped collar and the like LP thing playing on his Tron. I mean, like Orange Cassidy or Kyle O'Reilly even. Like, he doesn't have a whole ton of like distinguishing things, but like, I think you can kind of get a feel for the guy.
Yeah.
Just from the little stuff that you got there. The main, I should do my thing. Next up came the main event of the evening, which was a Swerve and Ospreay, their opponents. I didn't like this that much. AEW does not usually do we'll put the two together. Can they coexist?
Right.
It doesn't really happen.
Where it's so telegraphed, you knew exactly.
It's against the Gates of Agony. So like they're gonna fucking beat those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they could have gotten, if the match was good, because Swerve and Ospreay are in it. But like, and Gates of Agony are good in the ring too. But like, I think they could have gotten to that end, which they wanted. The thing they wanted to get to was Swerve leaning back into like I'm a bad motherfucker more than anything else.
It's interesting because this, of all the matches, felt the most WWE-ish to me because it was like
can they coexist?
The whole like, oh no, you can see that this isn't going to work out. And then also with Gates of Agony, I don't know them yet, but they were kind of like
big Samoan-y guys, like big
stereotypy
character,
costume,
Islander-y guys.
So it definitely felt the most.
You know what's hilarious? Like Ospreay and Swerve, on top of being the world champ and the most popular guy in the company, are probably the least WWE wrestlers that are on the entire AEW roster. But it was just this, like, That's what I mean about the last Dynamite before a pay-per-view. They always throw some nonsense bullshit. We had a DQ and a Can They Coexist.
But it also made me...
Those things don't happen in AEW.
It made me interested in wanting to watch those two fight each other, though, too.
So...
Because they, like... it was a fun match to watch them in.
It's going to be something.
And I wanted to see them fight. So it's...
Oh, my God.
I guess it did that job.
It's going to be something. So it sounds like you enjoyed Dynamite.
I did. I was a little nervous because this was so new to me. Like when I watched Raw and I was like, oh, this feels like I just watched it yesterday. Then I was like, okay, coming and talking to you about it because I was comfortable.
Yeah.
With AEW, I knew it was going to be different. I didn't know how it was going to be different, but I mean, it was.
They expect more of their audience. They expect a little bit more, like paying attention and stuff of their audience. But like I knew you'd be able to do that.
Yeah.
You don't need everything like beaten over your head or ladled down your throat nonstop like WWE does.
You know what?
And I feel I should again caveat. I am enjoying a lot of WWE stuff on the level that I can. The worst AEW stuff is better than the best WWE stuff for me. For most people, it's not. It's the other way around. But like, I am enjoying some of the stuff in WWE right now.
Yeah, I actually was in a really good spot having not watched either. And, well, having not watched WWE in so long and having never watched AEW, it was really fun to watch both. I
think this last, 6 months is the best time there has ever been in history to be an American wrestling fan.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good time for me to get back into it, I guess.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to say that it struck me about AEW, they had a bunch of guys who weren't particularly, big guys, but they looked so tough.
Like fighters, right? Look like fighters.
Well,
Kyle O'Reilly looks like a fighter. Look at UFC guys. They aren't shredded.
Bryan Danielson, I didn't even realize who he was.
He's the scariest dude.
He looks so scary.
He's the scariest dude.
Like a guy that would be in a Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah.
As the,
he also does
guy that
shit
doesn't talk.
He does shit like he broke his leg halfway through an Okada match and wrestled for 14 more minutes with a broken leg and then won by putting a submission on Okada using the leg that was broken.
Yeah, I was just struck by that. I was like,
he's probably going to eventually do the booking, I think, for Tony Khan. Tony Khan has said many times, Bryan Danielson is the best mind in all of wrestling. A lot of people think he's the best wrestler of all time. And he loves that part of it too, doing the stories and stuff.
I know for years and years and years that Vince had a look he liked in his wrestlers. And that was the look that I was used to. And so watching these guys who look different is fun.
That's a good, it's fortuitous. That means lucky. That you would mention that. Do you know the Daniel Bryan WWE story?
I don't.
So he was an indie wrestler, the best indie wrestler in the world for a long time. Nigel McGuinness, the guy that commentates on Collision, they had an incredible series of matches, which I think they're going to. Nigel's been retired for a while, but now he's getting back into shape and he just constantly talks shit about Danielson. I think they're going to have a rematch, which is incredible. But after his indie run, Bryan Danielson joined NXT before it was NXT when it was still a reality show, and The Miz was his coach. So The Miz is coaching
the guy who hasn't gotten better.
Maybe the best wrestler on earth. But they made him change his name to Daniel Bryan because Vince is a fucking piece of shit, dumbass, trash person, and not a genius. I'm so glad I don't have to hear, but he's a genius. He's a brilliant businessman. No, he was a ruthless, heartless businessman that just muscled people out of business. He didn't come up with good ideas. He killed his competition.
You have all the power. It doesn't matter what
he killed all his competition. That's all he did. But Daniel Bryan, got so over with the crowd that they started a thing called the Yes Movement, because his thing was yes, yes, yes. He was not supposed to main event WrestleMania because he's 5'7" or whatever. It was going to be Batista and Batista and Edge, maybe. Batista and Randy Orton. And so
guys who have the look that Vince liked.
Exactly.
And I like both of them.
That came from the Performance Center. And Daniel Bryan was an indie wrestler where you become a better wrestler because you're trying more stuff. They tried over and over and over again to like get him out of the main event picture, but it got so overwhelming, the crowd response. Everyone in the entire arena was wearing his shirt, white Yes shirt, that they were forced to put him in the main event of WrestleMania, and he won the world title. And it was like a legendary thing. It was one of the very few times that Vince McMahon backed off on something that he had decided, I know a little guy can't do her. And Bryan Danielson's just so fucking good at everything that he was undeniable. And when he signed with AEW, it was like match made in heaven. And I really do hope he runs the show like down the line. Yeah, he said that this is his last full-time wrestling year. Okay. Because he had to retire for a while too because of concussions, and he likes fucking with people. He's got a weird sense of humor. He looks
like it, just physically.
He likes fucking with people by like he'll sell a seizure in the ring a lot, or like do a thing with his hands where it looks like his and people were really worried that he was like gonna die. Yeah, and he loves doing that shit. Do you know what Hindu squats are?
I don't.
Excuse me to the listeners. I just want to demonstrate. My knees can't the Hindu squats are just those squats where you go all the way down and you like that.
Oh, okay.
But all the way down. Bryan Danielson stands in gorilla on every show that he's on and does Hindu squats nonstop until it's his time to go out onto. Hindu squats famously make people piss blood if you do them for long enough. He's a fucking maniac.
Looks like the kind of guy that might want to piss blood.
Yeah, I think he would.
That's what his look is. That's what I'm saying.
Maniac.
He's like the Coen Brothers character that doesn't talk that you should be afraid of.
The only knock on him that people have, and Dave has a big thing about this, he, at this point in his career, wants to put over all the young guys. So he loses all the time. He wants to lose all the time.
Yeah.
He refuses to, like, win titles and stuff. But, like, he's the best wrestler in the world, maybe. So, like, it pisses people off. Like, no, win. We want you to win one. Just win one AEW world title before you retire because it needs to happen.
The payoff.
But he just wants to put over everybody else. He wants to help everybody else.
That's awesome.
He's a good dude. Like,
that's awesome. But yeah,
he's also a vegan that made a vegan WWE heavyweight title out of wood and like leaves and stuff too.
When he was on screen, I was like, I just wanted to watch him wrestling. He looked scary. He looked tough. And
I could watch him wrestle every day.
I wanted to see him.
If you listen to my best matches of the first half of 2024 podcast, one of the top 10 matches it took place in Japan this year, but it was Zack Sabre Jr. and Bryan Danielson.
Okay.
They had like a 60-minute fucking grapple fuck. This is incredible. All right. So I think that'll do it for Aaron Winkler's reintroduction into the wonderful world of professional wrestling, the greatest art form ever invented by humankind.
And I think I might be hooked for now, so I'm going to keep checking it out.
I would be happy to have you back next week, too, especially since my scheduled guest is always kind of up in the air. I wouldn't mind having you both on together, actually, if you're interested. You don't have to. I could always do a solo one next week too.
No, I would be happy to. I'm a mom in the suburbs, so I have no life. So I'm more than happy to.
Okay.
Come and chat again.
If you don't mind, we're sitting around a little bit longer after the pod ends. I just want to show you a couple things.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it will probably further flavor your interest in pro wrestling, particularly in outside of WWE. There's a lot of good wrestling out there, you know. If you guys have not already, go check out the WWE iteration of this podcast. It drops at the same time as this one. Socials, you can get us at Twitter at Blue Thunder Pod, YouTube, The Blue Thunder Pod, Instagram, Blue Thunder Pod, TikTok, Blue Thunder Pod, or mail us directly at mail@bluethunderpod.com. Thanks for joining us as always, and hope to see you next week. Bye, guys.